Welcome. This is Jessica Labbe, and you're listening to an audio Yin Yoga class designed to help support a healthy spine. If you're not familiar with the poses, I've listed them in the description of this video so that you can look up the pictures if you're more of a visual person. Otherwise, we'll get started in a seated position on the floor or on your yoga mat. If you've never practiced Yin Yoga before or yoga in general, I encourage you to please check with your healthcare provider first to make sure that yoga is right for you. Remember that you're practicing yoga at your own risk, and it is your responsibility to make sure that you are being safe and doing only what you know is right for your body. We're going to start out in a comfortable seated position on the floor, on your mat. You could even sit on a folded blanket or a pillow if you wish. We're going to spend the next few minutes getting centered and getting a baseline for where we're starting from. I invite you to rest your hands in your lap or on your knees and gently close your eyes so that you can draw your awareness inward. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being no stress and 10 being high stress, where do you fall on that scale as far as stress level goes for you in this moment? Go ahead and check in with yourself. Once you have that number, set it aside in the back of your mind and we'll come back to that later. Let's pay attention to the breath now. Don't try to change anything about your breath, but simply observe the natural pattern of your breathing as it is. I'm going to give you a moment to do that. As you pay attention to yourself breathing, what are you finding? Do you notice that your inhales are longer than your exhales or vice versa? Or are your inhales and exhales pretty even? Did you notice if the breath was shallow or pretty relaxed? And is there anything else you notice about the quality of your breath? Go ahead and make a mental note of what you've observed. Now let's expand our awareness to the physical body. For example, how does it feel to sit here? Does it feel uncomfortable? Is it a relief? Are you noticing muscle tension somewhere in the body? Or does it just feel relaxing to finally sit down? Get curious. I'll give you a moment. Now that we've observed the breath and the physical body, let's expand our awareness to the mind. We're going to get quiet again. Now, I want you to pay attention to any thoughts that move in and out of your mind and notice if they flow in and out very quickly. Is your mind racing? Do you have one repetitive thought that keeps coming back into your mind? Do you tend to hold on to a thought and run with it and get lost in it? Let's take some time to observe that now. How was that? Did you forget that you were supposed to be observing? Did your mind get lost in a thought? That's normal. And that's exactly why we practice paying attention. Because as soon as we notice, our mind comes back to the present moment. And that's where the peace is. It's in those moments between each thought. The more that we practice paying attention, the larger those spaces between those thoughts become. Let's pay attention now to your emotions, to your mood. What is showing up for you right now? It doesn't have to be anything big or significant, but see if you can take a moment here and pay attention to what shows up for you. Starting now. Okay, hopefully you were able to identify some sort of emotion or mood, whether it be significant or super subtle. There's no right or wrong, there's no judgment, and now you have a better idea of where you're starting from in this practice. And now you have tools to help rein you in and bring you back to the present moment again and again and again as we stay still in each pose for at least 3 minutes. Let's get into our first pose and put this all into practice. We're going to make our way into a seated butterfly pose. pose. So you're going to bring your knees apart and the bottoms of your feet to touch together, creating a diamond shape with the legs. From here, you can fold forward, allowing your back to round, resting your hands on your feet or on the floor in front of you. Make sure your muscles are relaxed here. This is not about engaging your muscles. We want to target that deeper connective tissue. And in order to do that, we want to keep our muscles as relaxed as possible. You should not feel any numbness or tingling at any time in the pose or any sharp pains that feel unsafe. If you do, come out of the pose immediately. What we do want to experience is the feeling of a stretch. It can feel like a dull ache, and on a scale of 1 to 10, somewhere between a 2 and a 5 is a pretty good place to hang out. If you do have any neck issues, I encourage you to refrain from hanging your head down forward and try to keep your head in a more neutral position. The idea now is to remain still in the pose for the next few minutes. Many of us are not used to being still, so this can be a challenge. And this is where the tools of practicing paying attention can help us. The more we pay attention to what's happening in the present moment, the more we're able to relax. So let's do that. Go ahead and tune into the breath once again, observing and feeling the inhales and the exhales. If at any time your mind starts to wander and you find yourself lost in thought, know that you can come back to the present moment by bringing your awareness to the breath again and again and again. Think of your breath as an anchor that draws you back to the peacefulness of this moment. We're going to continue in this pose for about another minute or so. Check in and notice how you feel. If you've noticed that the stretch, that feeling of that stretch has begun to fade and you have further to go in that forward fold, feel free without force. If not, just stay where you are. To come out of the pose, you can slowly push yourself away from the floor and gently roll yourself up to a tall spine. From here, you can take your hands to the outer thighs, gently guide your knees together, and then you can bring your hands behind you to lean back ever so slightly so that you can heel toe your feet away from each other to about the width of your mat. If you don't have a mat, that's about a little bit wider than your hips. And we'll start to windshield wipe the legs back and forth to bring some movement and energy back into the body. So those knees are swaying from side to side. And when you're done with that, we're going to make our way back into butterfly pose. So knees apart and bottoms of the feet together again. And then you're going to take your right leg and extend it out to the corner of your mat. From here, you can allow your back to round as you fold forward either over that right extended leg or forward between both legs. So we want to go as far enough to experience that feeling of a stretch and making sure the feeling of the stretch is appropriate enough for you to hang there for a few minutes. While we're here, we want to remain as still as possible, muscles relaxed, and draw the awareness inward. As you observe your body, you still want to pay attention to everything else that's going on in this moment. Your breath, your thoughts, noticing any emotions that come up. Allow yourself to be fully immersed in your experience. When your mind wanders, just bring your awareness back to your breath. Feel the breath. We have about another minute left in this pose. If you're finding it hard to pay attention and your mind is really distracted today, one thing that can help is to count your breath. Count your inhale, count your exhale, pay attention. Is the inhale or exhale longer? That can really help keep you in the moment, and that's going to help you to relax even more. So it's been about 3 minutes. To come out of the pose, you can slowly roll up, pushing the floor away with your hands. And then grab on to the back of your right thigh, drawing that leg in as you bend your knee. And go ahead and bring that left knee up too, so both knees are facing the ceiling and both feet are flat on the floor. From here, we're going to heel toe the feet away from each other again to the wide edge of your mat and windshield wipe the legs again. Any stiffness or tightness that you feel when you're coming out of a yin yoga pose is normal. We feel the real benefits once we're done with our practice. And those benefits can last for a couple of days, making everything we do feel so much more easy and comfortable. From here, we're going to make our way into half butterfly on the other side. So we'll start by coming into a full butterfly to get that shape, and then we'll extend the left leg out to the corner of the mat. If you folded over your extended leg on the other side, you can do that on this side. If you folded forward last time, you can fold forward again just to make it balanced and even. Once you find your shape, check in and make sure that you are not trying to hold yourself into the pose and that you're able to release into the pose. Come back to that awareness of your natural breath, observing without judgment, and see if it's possible to connect to that feeling of effortlessness as opposed to all of that effort you put into your life in the other waking hours of your day. The next time that I talk, it will be to let you know that it's time to come out of the pose. How was that? Did you find it hard to stay present? The more that you practice, the easier it will get, I promise. It's time to slowly come up to a tall spine. Give your left thigh a big hug. Draw that leg towards you with the knee bent. And bring both feet flat on the floor. We're going to heel toe the feet away from each other again to the wide edge of the mat. Windshield wiping the legs back and forth, allowing any stiffness and tightness to melt away. When you're done windshield wiping your legs back and forth, we're going to heel toe the feet back together and then extend both legs in front of you for caterpillar pose. It might feel better to sit on a cushion for this one, but that's totally your call. If your hamstrings are really tight, folding forward might be a little bit more challenging for you. So what you could do is place a rolled blanket underneath your knee so that they're slightly bent, and that will help bypass the hamstrings. In this pose, we're going to fold forward without force. So we're just allowing the body to release. Pay attention to how your neck feels here too, especially if you have neck issues. If you're hanging your head forward, that might make things feel worse, and having your neck in a more neutral place might feel better to you. So make sure you're taking care of yourself and giving your body what it needs. And once again, we are paying attention to the natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing how it feels to be in this pose. There are always going to be poses that we dislike and poses that we absolutely adore. So you'll want to pay attention to what comes up for you in each pose and notice, are you resisting your experience or are you able to relax into it? No judgment, it's all information. I mean, think about how we go throughout our day just not paying attention to how we feel. Maybe you're driving in traffic and you're getting tense, but you're not noticing where you're holding that in the body. This practice allows us to become more aware of these moments when we're not practicing yoga. Checking in, letting you know there's about another minute or so left of this pose. When you are ready to come out of the pose, you can slowly inhale your spine up, head being the last thing to come up. And once you're up, you can lean back on your hands to release the hips and feel free to shake out the legs or create any movement that feels good to you. When you are ready to transition to the next pose, you can make your way onto your stomach. Sphinx pose is next. You can prop yourself up by bringing your forearms in front of you so the elbows are either under your shoulders or a little bit more forward of your shoulders, and the forearms are out in front of you with the palms down. Even though we are holding ourselves up here in this position, see if you can find the effortlessness in this pose. Are there muscles being fired that don't need to do the work to hold yourself up? Pay attention. We also want to make sure that the legs and the glutes are relaxed, that we're not engaging those muscles either. I know there can be a natural tendency to want to do that. Once you've relaxed into stillness, notice where you feel a stretch in this pose. If you don't feel anything at all, you might want to bend your knees so that the bottoms of your feet are facing the ceiling in a relaxed way. That can help bring more stretch into the low back. This is a great pose for counterbalancing that slouching that many of us tend to do in front of the computer for long periods of time. You might even notice changes in the natural rhythm of your breath here. Changes in the breath can also create changes in our energy and our mood. So allow your awareness to be inward for the duration of this pose and pay attention to your present moment experience. Can you believe it's already been a few minutes since we've been in the pose? To come out of the pose, slowly lower your chest to the floor, turn your head to the right, rest your right cheek down, and you can bring your right knee bent up to the side so that your gaze is towards that bent knee. You can hang out here for a few breaths, giving your low back some spaciousness. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So you can bring your gaze forward, extend that right leg back behind you, and then turn your head to the left, bring your left cheek down, bring that left knee in towards the body with your gaze towards the direction of that bent knee. When you're ready, we'll transition from this counter pose into our next still pose, which is Bananasana. And to get there, we'll make our way onto our backs. Once you make your way to your back, make sure that your body is in a straight line. If it helps, pretend that your glutes are glued to the floor. We don't want to move them at all. What we want to do is walk the feet to the right edge of the mat, or if you don't have a mat, just in that direction. You can even cross one ankle over the other for a little bit more stretch. And then we're going to do the same thing with the upper body. So raising your arms overhead, taking one hand and grabbing onto the opposite wrist, and then walking your upper body to the right edge of the mat or in that direction so that you're turning your body into the shape of a banana. Once you have found your shape, you want to release your muscles, connect to that feeling of effortlessness, and notice where you feel the stretch. I love how this pose opens up the whole side of the body. Become aware of how it feels to breathe here. If your mind wanders at all, know that you can come back to the peace of the present moment by bringing your awareness back to your inhales and your exhales. The next time that I talk, it's going to be to let you know that it's time to come out of the pose. So pay attention if your mind starts to wander. Use the tools that you have to bring yourself back to the present moment. Okay, it's been a few minutes. When you feel ready, you can uncross your ankles, walk your feet back to center line, and bring your arms down to your side. We're going to bend in the knees, take the hands to the kneecaps, and create some circles with the knees going in one direction. It's a nice massage for the low back. And then as you feel ready, you can switch directions with those knee circles. Let's now make our way into Bananasana on the opposite side. So you can bring your feet down to the floor, extend your legs. This time, walk your feet to the left side of your mat or in that direction. Cross the opposite ankle over the other. And then we'll bring the arms overhead, grab the opposite wrist, and walk the upper body to the left side as well, keeping the glutes on the floor. So we're now in the shape of a banana again, this time facing the opposite direction. Feel the support that you're receiving from the floor and give yourself permission here to surrender to the present moment. Surrender the breath, the mind, the body. The next few minutes are yours to practice mindful awareness. Okay, it's time to make our way out of this pose. So you can bring your legs back to center line and bring your hands down, bending your knees, making some circles with your knees, this time starting in the opposite direction. When you're done making circles with your knees, you can bring the right foot down to the floor and then cross your left leg over the right like you're sitting cross-legged in a chair. We're going to bring the arms out to the side in a T position and allow the legs to fall over to the right side. So that brings us into twisted roots pose, which is a nice stretch for the spine. If you want to create a little bit more stretch, you can take your right hand and rest it on your top leg. You can bring your gaze to that area. You can keep your gaze at the ceiling or bring your gaze away from the legs in the opposite direction. Do whatever feels most appropriate for you. Once you have found your shape, check in, make any necessary adjustments so that you can come back into stillness and then come back to connecting to that awareness, paying attention to your full experience in this pose in this moment. I understand that I sound repetitive, but this is how we change our brains and our habitual patterns. So while you're in this pose, see if you can notice those spaces between your thoughts. Okay, it's time to make our way out of this twist. Take your time. And as a counter pose, we'll hug the knees into the chest and rock a little from side to side to massage the low back. When you've had enough, we'll make our way into the twist on the other side, so you can bring your left foot down so your left foot is flat on the floor, and cross your right leg over your left like you're sitting cross-legged on a chair, just like you did last time. Arms out in a T position, and then you can take those legs over to the left this time and create that same shape that you did when you twisted on the other side. You might notice this side feels different than the other side. Maybe it's tighter, maybe it's looser. Just be aware, don't judge. Notice where you feel the stretch in the pose and allow your muscles to relax into the pose. Allow yourself to stay fully present throughout this pose, just like all of the other poses. And if you notice your mind wander again, bring yourself back to the moment, back to the breath, back to feeling what it feels like to be in this pose, back to noticing your thoughts, noticing your emotions, noticing anything that comes up, and allow yourself to be with this experience. Hopefully you're still paying attention and you haven't fallen asleep. It's time now to make our way out of the twist, and again, hug the knees into the chest, rock from side to side to massage the low back. And when you're ready, you can make yourself into our final relaxation pose, corpse pose, or Shavasana. Grab a blanket if you're feeling cold, or maybe some layers, and then make your way onto your back. Extend your legs and bring your feet a little bit wider than your hips. You can bring your arms to your side, bring them maybe about 6 to 12 inches away from the body. Turn the palms up to help open up the shoulders. Make sure the back of the neck is nice and long and the throat is open. Hopefully you're warm enough so that you can fully relax and receive the benefits of your practice. Close your eyes and take a moment to notice how you feel. One of the many benefits of a yin yoga practice is it helps to remove blockages from the body so that our energy can flow freely. It's similar to acupuncture in that way. The places where people tend to feel it the most are those areas where we have exercised the tissues. It can feel like a pulsating, a vibrating, or a buzzing sensation in the body. You may or may not notice this. And if you don't worry, it's not a big deal. Become aware of the support that you're receiving from the floor, from the earth. Allow the inhales and the exhales to flow freely without force through you. Remember, there's nothing to do, there's nowhere to go. Take this time to rest, relax, and enjoy the peacefulness of this moment. Begin to deepen your breath, and with your eyes still closed, slowly start to bring awareness to the room that you're in. Notice the temperature of the air against your skin, and slowly begin to bring some gentle movement into the body, maybe wiggling the fingers and the toes, maybe turning the head gently from side to side. And if you feel like it, reach the arms overhead, stretch the toes in the opposite direction for a nice long body stretch. And then hug your knees into your chest. Give yourself a big hug and take some time to rock from side to side to massage your back. And when you feel ready, roll over to your right side in a fetal position and take a moment there. When you're ready to come up, press your hands into the floor and slowly make your way to a seated position with your head being the last thing to come up. Sit up nice and tall here with your hands in your lap, your eyes closed, and take a moment to notice how you feel. Notice how it feels to be in your physical body. Notice how it feels to breathe. And notice how it feels to occupy your headspace. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, just like we measured at the beginning of this practice, where do you fall on that chart? Bring your hands together at your heart center. From here, take a moment to bow in gratitude for this time that you've taken to rest, relax, and recharge. And as you close out your practice, my wish for you is health in your body, peace in your mind, and love in your heart. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I would love to hear your feedback. What number were you at the beginning of this practice, and what number did you end with? Leave that in the comments of this video. I can't wait to see. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet and hit the notification bell so that you never miss a class. And if you know someone that could benefit from this practice, please share this video.